In 2017, Lindsay Partridge and Rob Listrow started planning the largest and most ambitious project in the history of Brickworks.
All my life, everything I do, I want to try and do the best I can. I never want somebody to look back and say, you know, that wasn't good enough. Why did you do it that way? So, you know, it's not about me and it's not about this year. It's about, you know, this plant's going to run for 40 or 50 years and people are going to say, why did they do that?
Over the coming months, the Brickworks team will be building the most technically advanced brick factory in the world. And we will be watching.
The level of technology here, there's no question that this will be the most advanced brickworks in the world and the largest single line in the world once it's completed.
But we've certainly got the challenges ahead of us. It's an extruder that's never ran before. What's it going to do? Is it going to work first time? Is it going to spin? Is it going to get too hot? Will the column go crooked? Will we have enough oil? Will our clay get really hot in the interim? They're the unknowns.
In 1908, Edward Spackman, along with a group of investors, formed the Austral Brick Company. By the outbreak of World War I in 1914, the company had established itself as a major player in the brick industry. More than 100 years later, Brickworks continues to lead Australia and the world in brickmaking. Under the leadership of Lindsay Partridge, the company has grown from state-based to a national and international operation. Part of the success of Brickworks is due to the continual evolution and upgrading of the manufacturing operations. Upgrading and modernising with the world's best technology is a passion for Lindsay and his team. For the past 4 years, the senior Brickworks team have been reviewing all the sites and past projects in the group to understand what next steps are needed to future-proof the business. It was soon apparent that they were going to have to build a brick-making plant that surpasses any other. The outlandish idea arrived at not only eclipses any other in Australia, but exceeds most others in the world. The person responsible for concept, design, implementation and execution of all Brickworks projects, locally and internationally, is Rob Listrow.
So the project's called Plant 2 Refit. The site is Horsley Park. The plant itself dates back to the 1960s, so it's quite old, and it's one of our oldest kilns. In fact, it had 2 kilns, and so basically 2 kilns will come down with a brand new modern kiln, and modern technology is what's going into the plant. We started to look at our lessons learned and the improvements that we've done around the group. And one of the things that Brickworks' strength, or through Austral's strengths, is that the automation side of things, where we've played a big role in automation, where we've managed to not just automate, but also introduce a lot of high-end technology within the brick industry. It's important, the evolution of the company, because we've taking technology and brick making to another high level again. You know, wages are high, there's no secrets about it. Gas costs continue to go up, electricity continues to go up. So everyone's always looking for a leading edge, another advantage. And where it's high for us, it sets up our New South Wales footprint for where our future wants to look like in New South Wales. So the importance of the project is the automation and the technology that's in it, to not only make beautiful products that last forever, but at the same time give us a leading edge into brick making and the art between brick making, and that's what we're sort of targeting and what we're working towards.
Lindsay Partridge has worked at Brickworks since 1985. In 2000, he was appointed Managing Director. Lindsay is a huge advocate of evolution and innovation. We were given an audience with him to find out about the factors that have driven the decision to try to build this never-been-built-before plant.
The history of Plant 2 at Horsley Park is that after the war, Brickworks was struggling to keep up, and we had 11 small dry press plants all spread around Sydney. So in the early 60s, they started buying up land at Horsley Park where they could build some new factories. They started in 1961 with Plant 1, which was known as the red texture brick plant, and Plant 2 was built in 1968 to 70, and then they built Plant 3 in 1973 to 1975. So between all those plants, there was something like 7 or 8 kilns, and the kiln builder was on the site, never left the site for something like 17 years. So it was an enormous undertaking, and obviously Plants 1 and 2 were massive plants for the time in the early 60s. Look, a good question as to why we really wanted to do it. Our initial thought was that Plant 1 was had been refitted in 1990 and had always been an expensive plant. We wanted to lower our costs. We'd taken a big cost hit with the price of gas over the last decade. But as it progressed, the value of land in the Western holdings, particularly where Plant 3 is, became so valuable we could no longer afford to really keep a Brickworks there. So there's two parts of that. We made Plant 2 much bigger. We pushed it out to 130 million bricks and accelerated the timeline so we could get off the site and really be able to release the land at Plant 3. We've been planning it for 3 or 4 years. There's a lot of bits and pieces that come together to make it, and he would draw it up, and that would circulate around. At the same time, we'd be running financial models, and we'd just go backwards and forwards. And so there's most probably the current iteration is most probably about the 40th drawing of it. So it's a lot of work goes in there, but it all really relied on us to be able to get certain equipment that would meet the specifications.
With Rob's national engineering team now across the project, funds secured, and the development approved, years of planning in place, the project can now begin, starting with the supposedly easy task of demolition.
Lots of dramas. Dramas. We could have made a movie just on dramas.
It is September 2020, and the demolition works at Plant 2 have commenced. There are tons upon tons of old equipment and infrastructure to remove before the new works can begin. This is not an ordinary raze everything to the ground demolition. To obtain a fast DA approval and complete the build quickly, the design of one of the world's largest, newest, most technically advanced brickmaking facilities will have to allow part of the over 50-year-old structure to remain. The demolition crew have described the process as painstaking, complicated and slow. As each layer is removed, what will they discover? What can be salvaged? And what changes to the master plan will have to be made? Will this unfathomable task remain on deadline?
Everything takes too long. But having said that, our timeline on this is to have fire in the kiln by Christmas 21. We're now mid-September 20. If we can get it up in 15 months and going from here, it'll be an amazing feat.
Mal Mellows is the person in charge of the initial demolition stage. Mal has been working for Brickworks for over 18 years, and this is by far the largest undertaking he's seen the business make. The commencement for demolition has already been slightly delayed, and the pressure is on for Mal and his team to stay on schedule.
So we've been demolishing the kiln for about a month or so, and we've unfortunately had to replace a contractor due to the pace at which they were going. If we'd done that, we would have been 2 or 3 months behind further behind than we probably already are. The current contractors had 1 million labourers crawling all over the place, which is probably a constant issue with regard to monitoring their safety, and we thought it would be a lot easier now to get a larger firm with demolition equipment to try and get this pace up, but also to make it safer in the process that we're doing.
Key consideration at all times during the process is that no one gets hurt, and demolition is obviously very dangerous. We've got large machinery knocking down the old kiln, and also we're concerned about asbestos and asbestos dust, and so we have to be mindful of these things at all times.
So the plan to demolish now is we've got to remove sections of the roof first. We've got some old sections that's quite corroded, and so we need to remove that to create good access way for our contractors. And so once we remove that access way, the first section will be a small section to the southern end of the plant. We've got to remove that. That opens up our doorway. And then from there, it'll be removing the hazardous materials, asbestos, oil that needs to come out in a safe and in a safe manner, of course, and then disposed of. And then we will then basically remove the outer ring of the plant, which is the sheeting and the outside. And then from there, basically, we go in and start to remove the old plant and equipment, which is usually an oxy torch or jaw crushers on equipment. And the last items that will finally get removed is the kiln and dryers.
One of the things we found with the dryers, I suppose, is there was a lot of unknown asbestos lag pipes, and the process of removing those lag pipes was quite complex. So, that probably took again an additional 2 or 3 weeks and additional costs that weren't budgeted for because we just didn't know they were there.
On a recent visit to the site, Lindsay broke the news that he wants to retain some of the kiln bricks to be sold as special heritage bricks. Whilst these bricks have a rich history and would complete an incredible feature wall, the salvaging of the bricks during the already delayed stage could add further pressure to the team.
I think it's just a special line we sell. It's a promotion. We're selling the bricks. These are the bricks from our last kiln, Yep. They were built in 1968.
So you want us to basically get it all down and then store it on site somewhere, and then we can sort as we go.
And then some guys can come and just put a pile.
These aren't too bad because there's no steel and stuff in there at all, right?
Pile up in there, and once we go through, we'll crush the rest of the recycle.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
The kiln's going to come down from the southern end. It starts from the southern end, works its way down to the northern end. And so, although it's quite sad, it's quite beautiful for a funny way of expressing it, because it's section by section as it sort of comes down. So we don't just hit it in one hit, we take it down section by section. Our managing director wants to keep some of the bricks, so certainly got a small challenge ahead of us. Don't know what it's going to cost us.
Well, this is the cooling end of the kiln, and the bricks don't take too much temperature here, but as we get further into the kiln, and you've got the fire has been on those bricks for 50 odd years, we've got a lot of really interesting colours. And of course these kilns were originally, they were fired on oil in the early days, and the oil always had little bits of metal oxides in it, which of course add to those colours. So they'll be quite colourful and very different to anything else that will be available anywhere in the market.
Yeah, so Lindsay's just visited, and he's thought it would be a great opportunity to get some nostalgia and potentially recycle the bricks that were actually used to make the kiln, particularly in the firing zone. So where all the colour is, so now we've got the arduous task of manually removing these bricks piece by piece in a manner that's safe with fairly big demolition equipment at the same time. So it's going to take weeks and weeks of work probably just to pull these rubble and selectively pull out the bricks. I think it's going to be a bit of a storage issue for the plants too, on how they store them and how we ultimately package them, but the boss speaks and we do.
Despite having many other curveballs thrown at them, Mal and his crew were able to complete the kiln and dryers demolition in a timely and, most importantly, a safe manner. This allowed the stack removal team to take up their place and begin.
A couple of pieces of item of the plant that we've got to actually remove is our stacks, what we call our exhaust stacks, which was on kilns and dryers. So we've got a plan that we're hoping with a couple of cranes that will just be able to actually just lift them straight out. And we think we've got that nailed down now. That was a sort of last piece of the puzzle to taking the rest of the plant out, which is going to be those two stacks. So certainly I think we've now got everything embedded and worked out our whole plan of how it's all going to come out.
Even the best laid plans go awry, and the stack removal was not an exception. As the crane started the lift, something wasn't quite right. The final section of the stack seemed lodged. After some careful inspection, the removal team deemed it too dangerous to lift the stack up and out of the roof of the building and opted to lay the stack safely next to the structure within the building. On close inspection, it was soon clear what had added to the weight of the stack, throwing out the lift calculations. It was over 50 years of build-up inside the stack, weighing hundreds, if not thousands of kilograms.
Got in from the weekend. We've had a massive storm, 1 in a 100-year event. The plant's a bit of a mess at the moment. A lot of it underwater. We prepped up as much as we could with sandbagging and getting all the waterways and guides and everything cleaned up beforehand. But no, it was impossible.
If there is one thing you do not want during the largest construction undertaking in the history of your business, it's a once in 100 years rain event and a global pandemic. Will this be breaking point for Plant 2? Horsley Park Plant 2 will be the most technically advanced brickworks in the world, employing some of the largest machinery and structure to make it feasible. However, Lindsay Partridge and Rob Listro have previously designed and constructed a modern plant at the Brickworks Wollert site in Victoria. Rob and his team have used Wollert as an archetype to help test ideas and techniques for Plant 2.
One of the great things that we've been able to do is use Wollert as our blueprint or a tool to learn from, which has been fantastic because Wollert's a fully automated plant and it's got the latest of the technologies in. So between Wollert and Rochdale, we were able to take lessons learned of how do we make something better and how do we improve from one project to another project. And Wollert gives us the chance to actually walk and feel it. And the kiln is a really good example because the kiln that's going into Plant 2 is physically the same size as Wollert. It's a Portique kiln. So the two biggest Portique kilns in the world are currently sitting at Wollert. So it's a great tool to walk, touch and feel every day and see what you can develop and make even better again. And so for Plant 2, we were able to use everything that we learnt at the Wollert 1, Wollert 2 as an overall project and improve things on the way, working closely with Director, our kiln engineer, our kiln supplier. And so we took all of those learnings, remodeled it again, and that started the chains of 6 main functions that we require for the plant, which is our clay bin, our clay movement for obviously our 120 extruder, which is a world first, and Rochdale was a good teaching tool for that one, our setting machine, our dehacker, and what we call kiln carb movement, transfer carb movement right around, which we will talk throughout the series.
The new kiln at Plant 2 will be physically the same size as the kiln at Wollert, but with almost twice the production ability. To have that ability, it will need to move bricks quicker, fans will have to push air faster, heat will have to be controlled with pinpoint accuracy at twice the speed. The new kiln's push rate will be 45 cars a day. Each car holds 7,776 bricks, which Rob refers to as the magic number, and he plans to have one leave the kiln every 30 minutes.
The extruder, the big 120 extruder, nicknamed the Beast, purely for its size. The extruder itself, when it actually comes and we basically put it together, it's actually 4-storey house in multi-levels to it. And so one of the things that I think that people will be impressed, or what's the right word, not impressed, but will certainly catch people's eye, will be the pure size of it. You know, 4 stories high would be grand, but we've certainly got the challenges ahead of us. It's an extruder that's never ran before. What's it going to do? Is it going to work first time? Is it going to spin? Is it going to get too hot? Will the column go crooked? Will we have enough oil? Will our clay get really hot in the interim? They're the unknowns, and they're the challenges that we're going to have throughout the project with it. But the 120 itself, as we are designing the plant, and we designed everything around the 120, we started to realise the grand scale that the 120 is. So one of the things that's going to be interesting that I think will certainly be taking people on a tour of this new plant, it's got its own substation to run purely extruder. So the 120 extruder needs 2,000 horsepower to run it. A steel 90 machine, 1,000. Double it. So we've certainly got some challenges ahead of us. What will it do? How's it going to work? We've all got to find out and see what happens.
Components for the New South Wales Plant 2 are being designed, built and collated from all corners of the world, but some important fabrication work is being made locally in Victoria using trusted manufacturers the Brickworks team worked with to build Wollert and many other projects over the years.
On the way down to Finlay Engineering over in Ballarat. They're sort of about an hour and a half away from the office at Wollert, and really going to go and have a look at how the transfer cars and haulage systems coming together. Haven't been over to Finlay for the last 18 months or so since we did the Adelaide project, and then I'll call into ICE Engineering as well. ICE Engineering, one of our fabricators building our clay bins, is 850 tonne clay bins going into the site, so they're well and truly into the fabrication of that one there. It's what we consider one of our critical parts. We need the clay bins to sort of be installed as one of the early pieces of equipment into the plant. So off for the hour and a half drive down to the lovely town of Ballarat. Clay bins going in the plant. Each clay bin holds 150 tonne of clay. So this new 120 extruder, that's the process that the 120 extruder needs. So in total, the plant capacity of what we call fine clay will hold 2,000 tonne of clay in it, and we're going to be using close to full capacity. It's about 1,500 a day that we use throughout the day. There's always one bin of storage. So as you can see, 4 V bins. You can see the shape of the load in the V section. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 bins here. And there's another 4 bins behind you as well, so that's going to go into the spray booth. And certainly Peter and his team are going to walk us through and have a look at where we're up with it. How's it going there, Pete? Tell us where we're at. How's this all coming together?
Coronavirus has now caused border closures between the Australian states. This has considerably slowed the movement of people and equipment for the project. Never been seen restrictions on the population have impacted Victoria considerably more than New South Wales, and thankfully the New South Wales team have so far been able to continue works, albeit also under COVID restrictions. Recovering from flooding in the once-in-100 years event has also taken its toll on the project timing, but with the major demolition works complete, the new framework and roofing is being constructed, primed and painted at a good pace. However, as the civil works start on the kiln foundations, something far more serious is discovered, and Rob Listro gets a call he'd been dreading.
You're heading to plant 2 about 10:30, I was told, is that right? Yeah. On site today because we've struck a bit of drama as all projects do, and it's usually in the civil works, which is the big one. So right behind me, if you can see behind me, is where our new kiln is going to go. It's what they call a portique kiln, so it's a 220 metre long kiln, and one of the issues we've now struck is between the southern end of the plant, I'm at the northern end of the plant at the moment, but the southern end of the plant we've found what we call shale. At the northern end of it we've found a lot of clay, so it looks like the ground isn't as stable as it is. We've had a series of geotech reports. One of our engineers, Dave Nissen's just down with the contractors at the moment, just talking to them at the moment, and so we're all obviously got our managing director who's going to come down a little bit later on, Lindsay Partridge. We're going to walk him through what we found, and we're trying to resolve a way to go forward with it. Our biggest challenge at the moment is the kiln is our critical path for the project, and so we've got to have our kiln engineers mobilise on site as quick as we can, because the kiln is the longest piece of kit, for a better way of putting it, that has to be erected. It's close to 9 months of work just in putting the kiln up. And so part of today's discussion is what do we do with the ground that we found, how do we get around it, and trying to come up with a solution on it. And as I mentioned before, Dave Nissen, who's been working on the project as well, has been engaging a series of geotech guys, which we'll present also to our managing director today with options that we're looking at. We think we've got a resolution, but like anything, as you continue to dig, as you can see by the machines behind me in the back corner down there, as we continue to dig, we're constantly finding different challenges, and that's what we're trying to work through today. So this is what we discovered as we started to dig for the undercar cooling, which is in this area here. As we started to dig for the undercar cooling, we started to realise we've got clay.
Yeah, well, this area was just, it was put on later on.
Yes.
If you look at how the building was built.
Yep.
The building originally ended about here somewhere.
Yeah, and that's what Dave and I were talking about.
And that was the end of the kiln. That foundation was the end of the kiln.
There you go, Dave.
There's the hacker there, right?
There you go, Dave. That's, as Lindsay pointed out, you know how we've realised that it was it. Lindsay's just highlighted the end of the kiln used to be here.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about this kiln, which is really amazing, it was built in 1968, and it never moved a bit. So I always thought we were not going to have any trouble. We'll just put a slab over it and we'll build it. But what we didn't know that they'd left all the clay in here.
Yeah.
And of course, the clay, as it gets wet, expands, and as it dries, it shrinks. And of course, it can pump concrete easy out of the way, and it can start to move. Because the kiln's hot, this is a big hot kiln. It'll dry all that out, but if it ever cools down, that'll pump back and pump up the concrete. So, and I'm assuming that these foundations don't line up
with the new foundations.
With where we need the new foundations.
Correct, yeah, correct. Yeah. We've found some uncontrolled field as well, and you see as we walk along down, there's some of the vermiculite from the kilns. We found some of that, and as we walk down, you'll see the change in the materials from one end to the other.
I mean, they weren't mucking around. I mean, they're big piers.
No, they're big piers.
Let's go have a
You'll
look
see
at what,
them
let's
down
go
there.
out down and have a look at them pulling out, eh? So there's a lot of material in there.
Yes,
So the kiln's what, 230 metres?
220.
220 metres.
220.
What, 6, 7 metres wide.
Yes,
We've got to go down 3 metres. We're going to have a big swimming pool.
yes.
Well, it's a bit like a brickmaker's nightmare. You know, you're going to put in a kiln that's going to run 40 years, and you don't want to be known as the person that put in the kiln that started to come apart. And some of our plants have started to come apart. But in the plants that I've built, punch bowl, we put 3 kilometres of piers under it. At Wollert, we put 2 metres of hard rock to get a decent base. That took us a bit to get organised. And then right at the moment we're building another masonry plant, and I don't know, we put 3 kilometres of piers I think in there as well. Same problem, really plastic clay, because there's clay and shale here because it's a brickworks. And if you don't take it out, there's going to have a lot of problems going down the track. So it's a constant problem. We never seem to allow enough though for it. You know, I mean, maybe we'd learn next time we allowed more money for it. But obviously this is a big setback. It's put us back at least 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to cost at least $3 million and have to go on the budget. But if that's the only overspend in a $130 million project, I guess we've done okay.
With a plan for the kiln foundations agreed, the team start work at pace to win back precious time that has been lost and to try to stay ahead of any further issues the global pandemic may present. Everyone is feeling positive again about the progress, but it's short-lived. Despite strict lockdowns across New South Wales to contain the COVID outbreak, the pandemic has continued to spread. Until now, the government has allowed essential workers, including construction, to continue, but the outbreak has been belligerent, leaving the politicians no alternative.
You obviously had a plan in place for when this happened.
We had a plan in place. We've got lots of plans. I don't know if all the plans go to plan, if that makes sense. Yeah, we did have a plan in place with the COVID, but unfortunately it makes it a lot more challenging because you can't get to the site. Our biggest challenge now is obviously the lockdown in New South Wales, and the closing of construction has become a big navigation for us. We've got to continue to navigate our way around it. Obviously we are closed, our site's closed down, so that's been challenging over the coming days and last week and a half, trying to work through that. Prior to that, also with the challenges in various different states, where finding that's even difficult now with suppliers, and how do you get suppliers in and out of the state, and that's posed some challenges for us as well. So we've been working very closely with that. And on top of it all, the federal government restricting people coming into the country is another challenge. We've got a specialised person that we need to bring in for the kiln, who comes in from the Ukraine. We sort of nicknamed him the kiln builder. He's a specialty from the Directs use, who are the contract company building the kiln, and we've been working closely with state governments and local governments in that sense, to try and get exemption letters and so forth, and that's been challenging as well. And at the moment we haven't been had any luck in getting them in. So Certainly got some challenges ahead of us at the moment.
Plant 2 is now months, not weeks, behind schedule. The project team are having to recalculate, calibrate and plan on a daily basis. Rob Listro and his team really hope to catch a break soon.
Half of what we needed to do at Carter, not that we ever had the approval to do any more. So we started up and we jumped
So whenever you're ready. So the New South Wales government has now closed all construction sites throughout New South Wales. On top of that, we are part of Fairfield Council, so we are in one of the 8 or 10 declared hotspot regions. So for the construction work to recommence on this project, the workers need to have a minimum of 1 immunisation, but most of the subcontractors I've spoken to, none of the men have been immunised thus far.
Actually, one of our board members, Dave, asked me a question a couple of meetings ago about the whole supply chain situation, and I made the comment that it's like the world's out of sync. The whole world is completely out of sync. You're not in actual control of what you think you're trying to do because, you know, the daisy chain effect all the way down. What you think you're doing, what you think you're planning, you know, you throw it out. It's a day-to-day thing right now. I think it's happening everywhere, and certainly with the project at Plant 2 is happening on a daily basis. Every day we face another crisis in some shape or form.
It is July 2021 and the COVID pandemic has everyone scrambling for solutions to problems we've never faced before. As well as COVID, the closure of the Suez Canal earlier in March is still causing shipping, budget and manufacturing chaos globally. The senior Brickworks team have had to pull together like never before and try to make sense of the ever-changing situation so that progress can continue. Despite the enormity of the problems being thrown at Plant 2, it's still coming out of the ground bit by bit, as if to say, keep it coming, you ain't gonna stop me.
Tell you what, finally been able to have the chance to get the site, and bloody hell, I tell you, dramas just continue here at the moment. One of the issues we've now got is we've got so much uncontrolled fill, we've done so much soil testing, but we've had to make a real tough decision at the moment, and pretty much, as you can see behind me on the further ground, which is our extrusion and the hacking area at the back, we've just got to be made the decision now to rip up all the concrete there's not one area that's been stabilised well enough, so we'll remove it, we'll put some controlled grade fill back in, level it, and then we'll be able to resurface it again. Wasn't part of the plan, but you can't take a risk when you're building a plant this size from that point of view. So, blessing that we've been able to travel. The negative is that the dramas just continue.
Is there anything that's worrying you at this point, or do you feel it's all under control?
Oh, look, you always worry that they're going to take longer. In this particular one, we're really under pressure to get off, to shut down Plant 3 about August next year. So we have to catch up the time. So we're pushing our major contractors to go to around the clock 7 days a week to try and catch the time up. Because we want to be able to get this plant up and away. And we also then want to do some maintenance. We want to take our Plant 1 offline to do maintenance on that plant. Because at the moment we're very fortunate, we've got a footprint of 3 plants. When we get off the Plant 3 site, we'll only have 2 plants and they'll both be running. So there's no spare plant to shuffle things around while you do maintenance. So that's put the timeline is where the pressure is. The project, I've seen most of the machinery has been built. It's all been gradually being put together in warehouses and workshops all over Victoria. That's not where, I mean, most of the kiln supplies are actually on site. We seem to beat the delays in shipping. That's all going okay. I'll be very confident that our regular designs of our equipment will pretty quickly go up. There's one new piece of gear, of course, which is the Steel 120, which we want to hopefully run beforehand and just keep this to yourself. But the foundations are designed to take a 90 in case we have to swap it out. So, just as a fallback place, because we haven't got the time to muck around if it doesn't go and we need to make some parts. But, so,
Someone did say
there's always got to be a fallback position.
So even the kiln itself, now that we've been able to open up the Australian borders, we've got one of the engineers from Directs who's here now at the moment, and we're trying to play catch up on the kiln as well, because we had the site at one stage was only 50% capacity of the contractors. Now we're at full capacity. So the endeavour at the moment is we're working 7 days a week. We're almost working 12-hour days, and we're looking at putting on a second shift to try and make up some time on the kiln itself. So that's been another challenge for us as well. As you can see, we were supposed to be doing crane lifts today. We had a 100-ton crane booked. You can see the water that's just overflowing now from the drainage. That's full of agni drain in there, can't hold the water anymore. So this has impacted the entire site. For our crane movement has been totally impacted, and it's now been compromised. So we will probably now lose roughly, I would say, anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks just in works here, because we can't do anything now. By the time this even dries, we can't get equipment. As you can see, I'm just sinking. As you can see, we're just sinking in the rain. So you look in the far distance and everything's underwater. So big setback, huge setback. The crane was supposed to be there, so that's our pre-mixer, that's the gearbox, the pre-mixer, the motors are here. Everything's in position, ready to be lifted, totally cancelled. Can't do a single thing at all. So, just adding to my headaches. Crusher works is now 6-7 weeks behind, and the majority of it is all just due to weather. We can't put cranes there. At the moment, it needs to be in an order that I requested it. Inflation. Like, we're just paying exorbitant costs. We've got trade shorts everywhere, so we can't get people. Then when we do, they're not as skilled anymore. You reckon I've got the shits? Me, fair income.
Rob Listro and his team are under immense pressure, trying to make what sometimes feels completely impossible, possible. Plant 2 has encountered unprecedented amounts of rain during its construction, and each event has not only caused damage, it has added time to the project the team didn't have. The most recent storms flooded the new crusher, causing hundreds of thousands of dollars of damage, which requires a redesign and rebuild. The good news is that the COVID pandemic is under control and a normality has returned to the workforce and manufacturing. It's now July 2022 and the plant is desperately behind schedule. The project is also many millions of dollars over budget, but despite this position, the board have approved the team's plans and are keen to see an acceleration in progress. The first kiln car of bricks from Plant 2 simply has to happen and happen soon, so it's all hands and heads on deck for the race to completion.
Well, it's a history-making moment today. Here we are, I'm standing behind me, is our first kiln car, made by the 120 extruder, actually on car 120, so how ironic is that? So it is a milestone for us today. It's been 18 months in the making to try and get to this situation we are today, so it's really exciting times. So basically what happens from now here on is our kiln is on and our kiln will start to push, and as time goes we start to increase our push rate. So for all involved, it's a day of celebration. It's a day of, I guess, congratulations to all involved to get us to this particular point. Still a lot more hard work ahead of us. We've obviously got our packaging line that we've got to start working on now, but the big key milestone of the plant, or the critical path of the plant, I am excited to say that there is our first official car made. Here we are at Plant 2.
It has been nearly 4 years since starting the demolition of the old Plant 2, and now the first car of 7,776 bricks has rolled out of the kiln from the new Plant 2. A team of seasoned brickmakers have now been put in charge to get the plant up to full speed and take advantage of the incredible technology and engineering that has been built. For some, Plant 2 is a new beginning. For others, Plant 2 will be a legacy.
Yeah, so look, I think at this point in time, it's a great opportunity to thank all the staff that are involved. That's obviously Robbie Listro and his team. They worked away from home. They worked all weekend, months at a time, over this, as I said, 5 years. A great effort on their part. During the course, some of them have retired. People like Tony Barron have retired, and some others have moved on. But it wasn't only the people actually building the factory. Behind the scenes, we had the technical people designing and adjusting and making corrections to products so we could make them here. We had the sales team having to, getting the customers moved from one product to another. The accounting team. It really took, it's a whole, Brickworks effort to make this plant happen, particularly of this scale. It's something that can't be undertaken lightly, and just took a huge effort from everyone, and I just want to pass on to them my great appreciation. You've done a fabulous job, and you can all be proud of what you've achieved. Thank you.
And what's next after part 2?
I think I'll retire.